Hello, Old School Comics Review. Okay, today we're going to look at a comic called Justice, which was published by Marvel Comics back in 1986. It was part of their New Universe line. The concept behind the New Universe line was that they were going to come up with new characters, new situations that were going to be a little bit more, quote-unquote, realistic than their other comics. So, none of the characters had, superhero suits per se, and it was supposed to be a little bit closer to the real world and whatnot. That's how much they succeeded as far as making it realistic is debatable, but it's kind of interesting stuff going on here. Now, I literally have not read this comic book in like 20 years. I was looking for something else to talk about, and I saw this, and I was looking at the cover, and it just kind of blew my mind. So basically, the concept behind Justice is the main character is an alien from another dimension, and he kind of has superpowers. With his left hand, he can create like a force field, and with his right hand, he shoots like, power rays or a power blast at you. The thing is, when he shoots you with the right hand with a power blast, it just leaves ashes, okay? And his other ability is that he can kind of tell if somebody's good or if they're bad by reading their aura, and he looks at you and he can see what your aura looks like, and if you're a good person, you're okay. If you're an evil person, he just fries you right on the spot. This comic book is very much a product of its time, and first of all, the most obvious superficial ways, every other person in the comic has either a mullet or some sort of new wave type haircut. The bad guys are straight out of like, bad Miami Vice or bad action movies. You've got the whole setup where there's drug dealing going on, and like I said, the bad guys have offices and they have connections to everybody. And a lot of the action and stuff, it's kind of that kind of tough action movie vigilante type stuff, even though of course our guy is from another dimension. He has like weird space powers or whatever. This was written by Archie Goodwin. Archie Goodwin is a guy who at the time had he was a mainstay in the comics profession. I know he was well respected by a lot of staffers at Marvel and DC. I know he got his start in the 60s, I think, writing like horror comics and like war comics for Warren Publishing. The art in this particular issue is done by Jeff Isherwood, Joe Delabeto, and Jack Fury. It's kind of the art it's serviceable. It's good in the sense that you can tell what's going on, where all the characters are, but it's really uninspired. There's no pizzazz, there's no snap, there's no individuality. It's just the most basic of comic book drawing. The writing is it's interesting. Let's just say that it's very much a product of its time. So you have people, telling other people that they know, explaining who they are in these really awkward ways where they're saying their full names and explaining who they are and where they come from. And it's almost funny, it's almost some of that so bad it's good type of stuff. There's one scene where there's a drug dealer. Matter of fact, there's a drug dealer who's a white guy in a three-piece suit and a fedora, and he looks like he's 30, and he's dealing drugs in the open in the park or whatever. At one point, he tells somebody, let me find it, "I knock chicks who yell at me flat on their keisters, stupid chick." Another line I like in here is where one of the bad guys is having an argument with one of his business partners, and he says, "The Villalobos family is in the drug trade, Marty Roth. Business for serious men, and Chango Villalopez is the most serious of all." It's just full of this type of stuff. There's another scene where the hero, this isn't funny dialogue, but the hero has a flashback to his home dimension, and him and his girlfriend get attacked by some other bad guys, and I don't know, the bad guys look like ninjas. So in Dimension X, they have ninjas, just so you know. Um, there's a whole thing where they have to meet at the fashionable nightclub, and there's all sorts of people there, and there's a TV screen showing videos, and the guy in the video is drawn to look kind of like Bruce Springsteen, and it's just great. This is a great comic to read, like in this kind of retro way. It's not a great comic if you care about art and story and stuff like that, but if you want to see what people were up to in the 80s and what comic book people thought was hip and contemporary, check it out. I think another other interesting thing is, in a way, you can kind of see sort of the roots of, like in a few years would kind of be the kind of grim and gritty phase. I mean, I don't think that's what they were trying to do, but it's 1968, or 68. It's 1986. I know Frank Miller's doing like Daredevil at the time. I think he was probably going to come out with the Dark Knight pretty soon. Watchmen was like maybe about a year or so away. And I'm trying to remember. I can't remember exactly which year that first Punisher miniseries came out, the one with the Mike Zeck art, and I think the writer was Stephen Grant or whatever. But there's this whole idea of like you kill the bad guys, yeah, you don't tie them up and leave them somewhere or turn them over to the cops. There's this idea of this was okay entertainment, kill those bad guys because they're dealing drugs and this, that, and the other thing. And this is presented in the Winter Comics not as a necessarily grim and gritty thing or a special thing or anything like that. This is just like a normal regular comic that they were putting out, that was consumable by all ages and whatnot. So I think it's interesting in that sense. Normally I would say, hey, if you like art by this person or if you like this other type of work, check it out. I mean, hey, if you're the type of person who likes reading stuff that's so cheesy, it's great, then check it out. Like I said, here's our guy. He's got a big coat with giant shoulder blades. He's got some poofy powder blue shirt on. He's got his mullet happening. Like I said, it's full of like crazy ass dialogue. Which is another funny thing because, a lot of comics you read these days, you can literally read them in like 5 minutes. This, for all the bad dialogue and everything, you actually do have to kind of like sit down and read it to get it. That's about it. I just wanted to share. Like I said, I saw it and it just blew my mind. I just had a weird 80s crazy flashback, and I just wanted to talk about it. Okay, so anyway, tell me what you think. Rate this review, leave whatever comments you want. In the meantime, have a good one. Take it easy.